Welcome everyone. Today we have amazing and also super creative barbarian guide for the high-end pit. So looking behind me, this is one of a Chinese player who has just cleared pit 126. And this of course is without using any of the holy potions. And the player we're learning from is actually one of the top players on the Necro leaderboard without using any of the holy potion. So PXX is the player, the Chinese barbarian player we're learning from, and he has an amazing build that I want to share and also discuss with you guys. So before we jump into the actual replay, let me just give you guys a brief understanding of how this build works. If you look at the skill bar, it is creative and also very strange. He's not using shouts except challenging shout, and he's actually auto-casting challenging shout with those pair of unique boots. So those boots will have a chance of you auto-casting no ultimate, no mobility skills. If you look closely at his skill bar, he has 1 ultimate, 2 mobility skill, and 2 skill without any cooldown. So the challenge shot is auto-casted every 8 seconds. Challenging shot's cooldown usually is about 21 seconds with any cooldown reduction. So having a 21 second cooldown reduction challenging shot auto-casted every 8 seconds means he's getting tons of maximum life, damage reduction, and also tons of survivability because of this. And this frees up the amulet and also the rings for more damage. Even the paragons can be adjusted using this auto-casting setup. So now that we understood the setup for the new barbarian, let's have a look at the barbarian in action with pit 126. Now in the high level pits, the monsters will deal pretty sizable damage together with multiplier scaling of increased HP. So the monsters are very tanky and also deals a lot of damage. But what you guys can see is our barbarian here is doing a lot of damage against monsters and he's extremely durable. So the highlight for this barbarian is that you hit very fast, you hit very hard, you're auto casting your shots and you're just smacking. And notice that he's using Hammer of Ancient. If you have seen a previous barbarian setup, Hammer of Ancient will increase your damage multiplier by 30% after 4 consecutive crits with your bash. And using this combination, he is doing a lot of damage, not relying on shouts, and still able to have tons of mobility, survivability, together with Call of Engine for even higher burst damage. And as you can see over here guys, the elites are melting down pretty quickly. And one of the best part is, he's retaining lots of damage, having the effects on his amulet and also rings for more offense. Because the auto casting capacity with challenging shot, he can be free up more skill slots, more effect slots, and even more offensive slots to push for higher in the pit or just try a different setup. Who doesn't like an auto-casting barbarian, right? We've seen auto-casting necromancer, auto-casting, sources, but auto-casting barbarians, I love it. Now jumping over to the boss fight. As you guys might have noticed, after pit 100, the bosses have extremely high HP. One of the highlights for this barbarian is the ability to stagger the boss very quickly, and after staggering, you can dish out tons of damage together with summoning your Call of Engine and also using your Hammer of Ancient. And during this time, you can notice some ability which I'll talk about on the second part of the rotation of the skills. Having both charge and also leap allows him to be extremely mobile. He can be dodging bosses' abilities left to right, and he can jump out of danger. He also creates Earthquake as he jumps to have damage reduction and also increased damage. So you're basically frog leaping together with getting unstoppableness with your charge. You're doing a lot of movements, lots of damage, and it's really fun build to try while you auto cast your challenging shot for extreme survivability. So yes guys, this is one of the wonderful builds my friend CB has contacted the original builder and we learned a lot from him. And I'm really excited to share the details of this build and how creative it is, and also to be building this barbarian together with you guys to push for higher pit without using Holy Bar Potion. Now before we jump into the builder's guide, we would like to say a big thank you for PXX for sharing his barbarian build on YouTube, and make sure you follow his YouTube channel for the latest update of barbarians using the new technology of auto casting for pushing for higher pits. Now he has mentioned that he learned this particular build from EDNGAME on the Chinese D2 core site, and here is a reference for the build. Should you guys want to come and also have a look. There will be 2 versions of the build, one with the unique helmet, the Shackle or Harlequin's Crest, one with this Berserker's helmet, which we'll talk about in this video. And of course, guys, a big thank you for my friend CB for contacting the leaderboard player and also adding all the notes together with the credits to those original creators for sharing this wonderful creative build. Now, the Chinese players are calling this build the Flying Baller Bash Barbarian. So basically, the Barbarian is actually jumping, leaping, flying around as he kicks down the boss and also deals a lot of damage and also auto-casting. How does the build work? You can see that we are using active spells which are assigned to rather have no cooldowns, rather it's an ultimate and also it's a mobility spell. The only spell we're auto-casting will be Challenging Shot, and this guarantees that we use the unique boots to cast this one every 8 seconds. Very important to consider this setup if you guys don't want to be casting spells. This is auto-casting, right? So we'll be using Core of Engine, which has tons of increased damage as we cast the ability and also give us burst damage and also more staggering effect. We'll be using Charge for both mobility and also gaining unstoppableness if we get stunned. We have Bash as our main source of damage. We have Leap for mobility for auto-casting Earthquake and also providing us with damage reduction and also bonus damage. Finally, we have Helm of Engine. After critting 4 times using a passive of Bash, we can then overpower with Helm of Engine, gaining 30% damage multiplier for the next 5 seconds. Very powerful. And we'll be using a technique for Two-Handed Axe for increased damage against vulnerable enemies, and also increased critical chance against those enemies. Now, briefly going through the aspects and also the stats of choice over here. What you can notice is the choices of gears is very similar to the Bash Halter Barbarian that we introduced on the last guide video. So our Chinese player is using the Harlequin's Crest or the Shackle. I'll be adding another version of this builder's guide which uses the Berserker's Helmet should you guys not have the Shackle yet. But if you do have the Shackle, the cooldowns, the damage reductions are not bad, and this helmet is pretty straightforward. It is a well-run helmet for most classes. And yes, we're using the unique gloves which allows us to do more damage with the basic attacks. The final piece of unique item we're using will be Yan's Blessing. These particular boots will provide us with close damage reduction, movement speed, which are really good. The best thing is the auto-casting ability. And as I spoke to you guys earlier, as a highlight, you'll be auto-casting Challenging Shot because of this. And this is extremely powerful, turning a 21 second cooldown spell into 8 seconds, and you gain tons of damage reduction. Now, in terms of the rest of the aspects, we're getting auto-casting Earthquake, which also creates damage reduction for us onto the chest by casting Leap, and this allows us to auto-cast a second ability. We're also getting basic skill granting us additional damage reduction. So you are stacking a lot of damage reduction coming from the auto-casting of Challenging Shot, coming from the basic attack, and also coming from the Shackle. Now, in terms of the offensive aspects, we're going with a two-handed weapon, which is very straightforward for the basic skill attacks and granting us additional damage. The second two-handed weapon we have with the slashing weapon is that we'll be dealing additional damage while standing in Earthquake, up to 50%. As for the one-handed weapon, we'll be going with Edge Master, and over here we'll go with Rapid Aspect for more attack speed with basic spells. Now, this particular build is not using a Melted Heart, which allows us to free up one skill spot, which allows us to deal even more damage with aspect of that adaptability. And this also allows us to get Amulet with higher critical chance with even more damage and also even better cooldowns with the Tempering. In terms of the range, we're getting the aspect of Element, which can give us increased damage with the physical element. And finally, because we're not using a Board Chieftain, we can have one free spot for the Leap cooldown reduction. And remember guys, Leap will provide us with tons of damage reduction together with increased damage as we leap around. You can notice that we're not using the aspect of Inner Calm, which wants us to stand still for 3 seconds. So this build is better with mobility because you don't have to stand still and you can jump out of the boss's mechanics, boss's attacks, jump out of everything as you fly around with this Barbarian. Now the gems and also sockets are pretty straightforward. We're going with basic skill damage, we're going with maximum HP and also any of the resistance we're missing for the build. Now my friend CB has translated and also added tons of notes over here. Should you guys want to come over here and have a look at the skill rotations, how does the build function, what is the most important part about the build, like getting the Yan's Blessing, the Halter effect, and also how you get maximum armor and what cooldowns you needed. Together with the credits to the players, make sure you come over to the builder's guide. So now briefly coming over to the skill trees and also Paragon board, there will be some changes. So I mentioned earlier, the passive for Bash will provide us with a guaranteed overpower with the next core skills after 4 critical strike. And after you overpower with the Hammer of Ancient, you can then increase your damage by 30% for the next 5 seconds. So this is always up because you're hitting so fast with Bash and also critical hitting so many times. Now in terms of the skills over here, you can see that we're maxing out those passives. We're not getting any of the shots while getting max rank to challenging shot, because that is always auto-casted together with getting thorns equals to maximum life, getting additional maximum life. We're getting all the abilities and also benefits coming from the shots, because those will be auto-casted. 1 point is allocated to charge, which does not have to be. If you already have the Shaco guys, you can save 1 point over here. Additional points are allocated as we get damage reduction, as we get Berserk while casting our Brawling skill. And the Brawling skill will be damaging enemies, will be coming from Leap, and we'll be leaping around a lot of times with the cooldown reduction. Now the rest of the passives are pretty straightforward. We're getting No Mercy for the increased critical chance, we're getting the increased damage with counter offense, and also we're getting some really nice additional passives like increased attack speed while casting the Core of Ancient. Together with the passives over here and also increased damage with Berserk, the build has tons of damage and auto casting defensively with the challenging shot. Now briefly going over to the Paragon board and also the 7 glyphs of choice. We'll be going with Explode for more vulnerability and also casting vulnerability onto enemies. We'll be going with Ire because that is one of the highest damage with Berserk. We'll go with Might to give us additional damage using 2-handed weapon. And we'll go with Revenge because we'll be dealing Thorns damage as well, which give us even higher damage multiplier. We also have Rumble, which give us more damage with Earthquake and also against crowd control enemies. We have Territorial with close damage increase and also damage reduction. Finally, we have Untaunted to give us additional damage while fortified and also damage reduction while fortified. You might have noticed something. We're not going with the Martial Glyph, which give us lower cooldowns on the shots. Because we have no cooldowns on the shots, we're auto-casting all the shots, and this frees up one particular glyph slot for more damage, more defensive capacities, and also even higher utility. And not having the Martial Glyph means you're doing more damage and also saving more aspects by auto-casting this spell. I love it. It's really creative and it's really smart to make sure the other spells are either ultimate or mobility spells. So this way you are guaranteed to have this spell auto-casted. Now coming over to the skill rotation for this Barbarian build. Right away you can see our Barbarian is actually having 2 potions. If you're not sure how this works, I'll add a link below to show you guys how the potion work, how can you have multiple potions to get the most out of it. As you get into the fight, you want to be leaping around every few seconds, because this will create Earthquake, which will deal additional damage, give you damage reduction, and also this will give you Berserk. As you gain Berserk, you will do even more damage. Every 4 to 6 attack with your bash, as you critical hit, you do want to use Hammer of Ancient, which is guaranteed to overpower. As you overpower, you gain tons of more damage, and this in turn will make you even stronger. Now most of the time guys, you're not casting your challenging shot, you're auto casting this. But you gotta remember, challenging shot has to be on cooldown and for this to be auto casted. So you want to spam your challenging shot so it's always on cooldown, so it's always rotating between the seconds. And this means you don't have to build too much cooldown reduction for the build, because when it's on cooldown it's auto casted, when it's off cooldown you can cast them manually. Finally, you can use charge as one of the ways to get unstoppable, to get out of situations which you get stunned, frozen, and also to have a little bit of mobility. But most of the time guys, you're leaping around, you're smacking around, and as you remember the combos with Helm of Ancient, you can do a lot of damage. Now the skill rotation against the boss is also pretty straightforward. Because you have so much mobility as you leap around, you can then dodge most of the boss mechanics. As the boss lay traps and also mines on the floor, you can just leap across them. Now during this time, you can cast your Core of Ancient whenever it's off cooldown, and this allows you to have additional staggering, additional attack speed, more burst damage, and remember, notice that he used charge to get out of stuns. So the build is very versatile, very mobile, and it's very creative to just be able to auto cast your spells. And during this time, make sure you're always casting Challenge Shot so it's always on cooldown. and this means it gets auto-casted every 8 seconds to allow the build to have extreme survivability while doing a lot of damage. Now before we finish the video, a big thank you for the Chinese content creators for sharing this build, and also for PXX for sharing this build onto YouTube. Should you guys want to follow them, we do have the link and also credits available in the description on the builder's guide over here. And in the future guys, I'll be learning additional builds like the Rogue, the Necromancer, even the Sorceress, and also the Druid for the top meta build without using the Holy Blood Potion. I'll be sharing those builds with you guys and also building those together to try the meta out, to try different variety, and to try interesting creative builds together for the new season.